The mind is so powerful and you have to be really careful about the office that you keep inside of it and just doing things that fill up your cup, and just know that things are going to get hard, but just trust the process because the universe always has your back, and like the silver lining will come at the end.
On today's episode, we have Bernadette Fahey, the founder of By Berner. We go deep this episode. We both shed a tear. We talk about perseverance, the importance of PR and branding, and balance. I really love this conversation with Bernie, and I know you're going to love it too. Enjoy. Welcome back to another episode of Self-Dom Beautiful Humans, a safe place to learn and get inspired to live your healthiest and most fulfilling life. I am Dom, your host, and I feel so grateful to be living my passion, getting to interview inspiring and knowledgeable guests. On today's episode, I have Bernie from By Berner. Bernie is such a close friend of mine, and I truly believe it's a long time coming for us to do this podcast. I did my first ever event at her beautiful Bondi studio, and she teaches some of the hardest Pilates classes I have ever done. So I would say Bernie isn't just an overnight success. She's put years and years of hard work into getting her brand name to where it is. And this episode is going to be all about that. So without further ado, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
You are the Pilates teacher of the elite of Sydney.
Yeah, thank you.
You really have created a name for yourself. I wanted to talk about your journey. How did you create By Berner? How did you get the name? Just tell me from the start.
Yeah, basically I was in Coolangatta.
Are you from the Gold Coast?
No, I'm from Bondi, but I was stuck in Coolangatta during COVID, and I lived in America before that. Came back to renew my visa. And, the whole world shut down. And I thought, you know what, great, I'm going to have some time with my mother. I'll go back over to America. I had a fiance at the time and got completely stuck, and my whole life kind of blew up. And at the time, I was working in PR and was really burnt out of what I was doing. And I was listening to a lot of podcasts from entrepreneurs, and the common thing that kept coming up was find something that marries your passion, and it's never going to feel like you're working a day in your life. Fast forward, my relationship ended. I decided to stay in Sydney, in Australia. And at the time, I got really into online working out, like a lot of people did during COVID. And I was just running one day and meditating, and it kind of just came to me to start my Pilates teacher training. And that's where it kind of all began. I moved to Sydney from Coolangatta. I went and found the best school, which was Polestar Pilates. It was also internationally recognised because I didn't know if I'd move back over to America. And I went in every day for 5 months and got my mat and reformer. I did my teacher training, and from there passed my exams, and then went through and worked my way through all of Sydney's top studios. I started in a tiny studio in the inner west because I was so scared to get up in front of people and teach. Like, it was a total new skill for me. And, bit by bit, month by month, I just gained more confidence. And then I started my own personal home studio and just slowly started inviting people to come for free. I think that's how you and I met. And it was so picturesque and beautiful. It was right on Tamarama. And there was this transition where I was getting so busy at home. And then I stopped working at studios, and that's kind of how By Berner, it was just like my personal kind of Pilates teaching name came about. And then I had to move out of my home, and then found the beautiful studio in Bondi, where I now am.
I think that's so inspiring that you had a complete different career path and then jumped into a new career path, because so many people, even on a small scale, do a uni degree and they're scared to try something else because they're like, oh, I've invested 4 years of time and money into something else. But now you're living and breathing your passion, and it's so inspiring to see you do what you're doing and to see how far you've come. I wanted to ask, you've obviously got the PR background. How much has that helped with you kind of navigating Body by Berner?
I think in a big way it has, but the biggest thing, and when I got this question from you, I was thinking about it over this week, and the biggest thing that's helped me is my ability to connect with people and make people feel good. And I think when you have a great product and you can do that when you're delivering an incredible class, but also allow someone to walk away and feel like, you know what, like I've got this, I can do it. That's where my success has been. And I guess PR has been a byproduct of a really good product.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, your classes are incredible and they're unique and they're different and they're Body by Berner. You know, it is a Pilates class, but you've got your you elements to it. You've got your stick there. And, you know, now you've got a bunch of teachers who, you know, work so well in the studio. What do you kind of look for when you're hiring people for the studio? Now that you don't need to teach every class yourself.
And it's really funny going from that transition. And it wasn't too long ago that I myself was sitting in that spot auditioning to go and be at a studio, to work at a studio. I go off feeling. It's how when I meet someone right away, they looking at me in the eye, are they confident? That's a big thing, because if I want people in my instructors at my studio to make the clients feel comfortable, and then from there it's, you know, just seeing how they, you know, what their teaching style and all of that is. But it's definitely like I go based off my intuition.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because some people have 10 years experience versus some people have 1 year's experience. But it's that connection. It's what you found worked for you with your ability to grow your business. Now you're looking for it in the people you hire.
Yeah, and I also know, like, when you're in a new space and when you're auditioning for someone new, like, nerves obviously come into play. And it wasn't too long ago that I was that person. And if someone's nervous, it's okay. I find it's like my job to make them feel comfortable and just see kind of how they go from there. Yeah.
Well, I definitely think, Bernie, you are your own brand. It's obviously called Body by Berner. I wanted to talk about your view on being the face of a brand. How important do you think it is in the wellness space? Do you think it gives you an edge?
I think it's like a double-edged thing. When I started Body by Berner, it was me working out of my home in Tamarama. I wasn't at that stage ever thinking that I was going to have a studio. I kind of just wanted to build up myself. And then when I moved into the Bondi studio, I had an opportunity then to either step away from it, but it kind of, the press was already out there, my name was already out there, so I had no choice. You see people like Tracy Anderson. I mean, she's got studios across the US and other classes. I don't it's hard because people would want Tracy, but then I think your brand gets so big that it grows outside of you. I think it's a double-edged sword. Like, there's some really great benefits to it, but then it's like, you know, people want to come in and they want Body by Berner, and it's like I've only got a finite amount of time in each day.
Yeah, I feel like every time I see you, we have a conversation and we're just like, fuck, we're near burnout.
Yeah.
Like, we're literally like...
The burner's burning out.
The burner's burning out. You want to give your time to everyone, and you're so welcoming to so many brands to the studio. It is the most aesthetic studio I've ever seen. So, you know, I'm so grateful that I got to have that event at your studio. So I understand that double-edged sword thing, because it's like, you are your brand, but as you progress, there's only so much time you have. And you need to look after yourself and your mental health, which has me wanting to talk to you about kind of the highs and lows with business. I do believe a lot of the self-dom community are in the wellness space. They maybe would want to open a studio or some sort of, or they want to become a practitioner. Would you be honest and open with us about kind of what happened at the start was trying to open Body by Berner? We've spoken about it off mic before.
Yeah, I'm so happy to go down that and share. When I was living in Tamarama and ran my studio from there, I felt like I was, and it's so funny, even now, like choking up, I can feel my heart and like my body seizing, just like going back and thinking about that time. But I wrapped my identity way too much in being the girl that lived in this beautiful apartment overlooking Tamarama and that Pilates Body by Berner. That's what I thought it was. And then things happened with my family where I had to move out. And at the time I was like, well, what am I going to do? Where's my place of employment going to be? Like, how am I going to do this? And I was so stressed out. And I remember thinking like, I just want to die,
Wow.
you know?
Oh.
You know, and it's like the more people that I talk to about it, they're like, I've felt like that as well. And it's like so hard to go through it because I think so many people look at me and they're like, you know, that's like you have it all or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was like such a tough time in my life. Yeah. And I think you just, like, my friends were so amazing and you just have to like kind of like just like keep going. And it's so funny because I remember people said to me like hard things happen and I'm like such living proof of it that you just have to trust the process, because then at the end it's like I found this like dream studio that I couldn't even believe, and my business and everything's grown to be so bigger.
Yeah.
You know, like through that. And I think now what I've learnt from that situation is the mind is so important, like it's so powerful, and you have to be really careful about the office that you keep inside of it and just doing things that fill up your cup and just know that like things are going to get hard, but just trust the process because the universe always has your back and like the silver lining will come at the end, you know?
Yeah. And I think as well, it's so important to share those vulnerabilities because everyone posts their highlight reel.
Yeah.
No one sees that.
And I know, like, even it's so funny because in the shit times and like, you know, like if you see my social media, you'll see me at an event, but like the next day, like I'm grinding it at the studio at 5 a.m. and like, it's like that, those things you don't see. And I guess it's like, we're just so busy to show that. But yeah, like it's really tough. And then even when I opened the studio and everything was going well, like it's been amazing, but it's still so intense. You know?
Well, you talk about mindset, and I love you said something about you have to look after the office in your mind. I love that so much. I've been to your classes, and you always put peppermint oil on our wrists. We take some big inhales, exhales. The mind is such a big part of the practice.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate that into your own daily life now, coming through the other end of those challenging times?
I have learnt not to overwork myself. I went to a retreat earlier this year and I set out a whole bunch of goals, and I think on one side it was to get my business where I have in the last few years, I needed to work hard. But I think you can't do it at this state of totally burning yourself out, because if you don't have a full cup, then there's nothing to give. So for me, it's definitely not overworking. I have to exercise every day. When I was working at Tamara and didn't have a team, all I was doing was taking care of everyone else and working out. And I've learnt like my aesthetic and my body is my brand. I have to exercise and feel good. And meditating is such a big thing. And I think so many people unless you've done a course or have a bit more understanding of it, it seems so unachievable and like such this like idealistic thing. But I think if you understand kind of like how the mind wanders and allow that, you find like a great deal of like peace and meditating really helps me. And I've recently been doing float tanks as well.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with
Yeah,
that. Did I tell you about them?
Maybe.
The city gate? Remember I sent a message there?
But the only thing is my bloody hair. I need to get a haircut for it because my hair just gets from all of the salts and stuff.
Oh my God, and if you don't rinse properly, you get like white all over you.
And then I got into my car the other day and there was like bloody crystals all down the
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So with your classes, as I mentioned, there's always an aspect of mindfulness.
Yeah.
When you hire trainers, is that something you teach or something you really encourage them to always include?
Yes, for sure. And I think there's like different people and different people have different levels of spirituality, and I don't want to have a studio or be that kind of boss that is like, you need to be like me. Like I think I want everyone's personality to flourish. I think, definitely having the bookend things of the peppermint oil that I start and the beautiful Beyond Words cards that have like a little illustration and a quote from have a quote. Those two bookend things are in a class, but how it's delivered, I leave it up to the instructors because, not everyone's not confident, not everyone is spiritual, and that's okay, and it's like just being accepting of everyone. And like for my teachers that aren't, I just say, honestly, it's great for the nervous system, take a few breaths. Yeah. Or the woo-woo ones can go a little deeper.
Well, I think it's so important, like when I notice how I enter a studio versus how I walk out, it's those 3 breaths at the end that just solidify and cement the practice so much. I find it really important. And every class I've done, as you said, there's those few things that are non-negotiables. And I love that because that's when you're entering the Body by Berner space.
Yeah.
And I think it's good. It's your brand and it's something that all the teachers can incorporate, and it's a beautiful way to start.
Yeah, and I think that's like when maybe thinking about because fitness and Pilates is so broad, there's so much competition out there. It's like having those few little touch points that are unique. That's when I opened the studio. Like I'd always had done that before, but I made it like a non-negotiable that, so it all feels like very Body by Berner.
And I'm not sure, you might relate to this or not, but me 5 years ago, I didn't have any time for mindfulness. I would probably leave before the stretching. I've got to go, I've got to get my steps, I've got to do this. My cortisol was always through the roof. So now seeing, a studio where these elite Sydney people come, when I go into a studio, everyone's beautiful. And, I think it's important, even if it's forced on them, to just take those deep breaths because that might be the first step for them to be like, okay, actually I feel calmer.
Yeah.
Maybe I will try meditation. Maybe I will do the breathwork session, whatever it may be. I think even if the first reason they start an element of mindfulness is like forced, it could be the catalyst for something so much greater, and it creates a ripple effect within the area. And I think it's so important.
Well, I remember when I was living in my early 20s in New York, and, I didn't have meditation or those mindfulness tools, but I did have a gym membership and I would go and do a lot of yoga classes. And this always stuck out to me, and I think it's always been a way that I try to teach a class. The teacher said to us all, how you show up on your mat is how you show up in your life. And how that kind of translates is like you're in these like difficult poses. If you can learn to just breathe through that and just like kind of witness the sensations, because shit's always going to come up, and just breathe. Like it's, and like I remember like things would come up outside of the mat in the world, and I'd be like, okay, like I've got this, like I could do that really hard pose. I can breathe now. And yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to realize that, that little movement you do on those mat, if you do one extra pulse when you thought you were going to give up, you realize cognitively that you're stronger than you thought you were.
100%. And and that's what I find so interesting about training people is just to get them you're feeling like, okay, like I can do, I'm worthy and I can manifest, my highest dreams and I'm going to get it.
Well, I wanted to touch on your retreats. We were talking a little bit off mic.
Yeah.
What does a Bernie retreat look like? What would the schedule kind of
Well, I
be?
think the overarching theme for the retreats is giving you tools for how you can not burn out in your everyday life, to kind of just disconnect and just have add this little tool belt to your, repertoire for living a better life. The retreat schedule will start with a morning fitness class by me, a beautiful breakfast. All of the food is organic and made by chefs. And then it will go into a mindfulness workshop, such as a little manifestation thing or manifestation, something like that. And then some free time into lunch. And then in the afternoon, there'll be the opportunity to have incredible therapies. I've curated an amazing list of kinesiologists, fortune tellers, massage therapists. There'll be a little afternoon activity, a stretch in the evening, and then dinner and a sound bath healing. Yeah.
Oh my God, that sounds like heaven.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, if someone couldn't financially afford to do a retreat, what are some simple takeaways that they could use to prevent burnout?
Meditation
comes up again and again.
Yeah.
So good.
And if that's something, if you've got an adversity to it and you're like, no, I don't want to do, don't do it. Just if it's meant to come to you and you do it, it will. Don't stress yourself out to do it. Other things that you can do is simply putting your feet in the sand, putting your feet on grass, walking around and just being in nature is there's energy and vibration. That is such a big thing. Breath work, a simple box breath, 5 breaths in, hold, 5 breaths out, hold, and just repeating that. Could be writing 3 things down that you're grateful for, taking note of things that make you laugh, just taking a moment to not be a human doing, to be a human being and feel into your heart space.
Yeah. And
just notice how lucky we are.
I think it's so important to notice as well, because I think people would see on your Instagram and, you have all these beautiful people come in who have maybe designer products, but at the end,
do you know what it's so it's this, because I think I'm a bit of a dichotomy in myself.
I see that in you.
I love designer things, but I'm also really spiritual, and it really doesn't matter to me at the end of the day. But it's this push-pull, and I think it's so sad to me that people feel like that, because I really don't want to create a space that's like that.
I think it's just the area as well,
or maybe it's just because I hear from some mums that I could never go in there, and it's if you see,
my mum came in.
Yeah,
it's not that.
There's not everyone is designer, but also I also think how awesome that I've created a space that people want to come in their best outfits and energetic. If you care about your appearance, whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with money either.
No,
and
it's an abundance thing.
I think that's the standpoint that I come from, but it is something that I grapple with. But I'm that's kind of me. And a lot of my clients love that. It's there's that spiritual side, but there's also a bit of designer handbags on it.
But I think it's okay to have that dichotomy. And I think a lot of people you have to have one thing and run with it, but it's not true. I think everyone has so many different layers to them. And even when you were talking about that challenging time and how you got out of it, it was like the meditation, the movement. It's all these things. Those 5 things you just said were all free.
Yeah.
Like your biggest wellness tips are free and anyone can do it. But you've also created a beautiful space that allows all to come.
Yeah.
And I mean, even for me, sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I'll look a little bit nicer because I'm going in there. But I kind of love that about your studio. And I think, people always say that. Different trainers who have come on, they always say different things. Like, oh, some people think I only train models or something. Yeah. But again, social media is one little thing that you post. Yeah. You also always post yourself in the funniest moments, like with your tan on and you're just, I feel like you're a designer, but you're also like just a silly human.
Yeah, I'm just trying to bloody do it all, build a bloody business and still have some fun on the side. But if sometimes I got to train someone in a tan and pajamas, that's what I have to do. And you know what, I run my own business, so I can't and I'm kind of a bit unapologetic about it too.
I wanted to ask though, you've had some viral videos. Did you see a correlation with those videos going viral and getting more people come in?
Yeah, and I always ask when there's new faces, I'm so intrigued how they found out about the studio. A lot of girls say TikTok and Instagram.
Wow.
And also people from America have come in, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in Body by Berner. I've seen this on Insta. It's so, yeah. And then Rita Ora came a few weeks when I opened and she posted on her social, and that kind of just people love celebrities.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to realize, as you've said 100 times, you love movement, you love breath work, all these things, but you're a business owner. You need to do what you need to do to get people through the doors and so you can pay your bills and get through.
Yeah. And it's, I think social media is such an incredible way for me to market my business. And it's how I think that's been me harnessing that tool of it has been the biggest driver of business outside of word of mouth of people saying, it's a great workout, she's incredible,
Yeah, I think it's important. Well, we always see each other at events. I think we always bump into each other. We have a few words here and there. How do you find balance with that? Because as you said, you're in the studio the next day at 5:30 a.m. How do you do it?
Well, in my earlier, about a year or two ago, I was really working to get my name out there, and at events were a really great way for me to pick up clients. So I would basically go to anything I was invited to. And then now I'm less is more. It's too much for me, and I've learnt where my energy levels are. A few even a year and a half ago, and this is maybe a little bit more directed to instructors, I would want to teach 10 sessions a day and be amazing, I'm going to make all this money. And now I'm I will not do more than 3 or 4 because I am exhausted. So with events, I pick and choose what I love. But yes, it is challenging sometimes if I'm out at 10 o'clock at night and then I've got to be up at 5, but I guess it's all just within the job, and that's what you got to do, and just find your times when you can have a bit more downtime.
I wanted to ask, if you are someone going to these events, say you're new to becoming a Pilates instructor or someone trying to do social media and they go, how does it go from going to the events to working with the brand?
So whenever I'd go to an event, one of my tactics was...
We're getting the tea.
I would always wear... I guess I'm pretty known for wearing raunchy outfits.
Yeah, she's in the Go Daily Mail.
that show off my body. So I'd always kind of feel fab.
I mean, you are your brand. I keep saying it again and again, but it's part of it.
Yeah, so I would go, and then I will always find out who the PR person is, who the brand person is, and I will just go up and introduce myself. And, you know, talk to them. And when it was me working at studios, I'd just be like, you know, I'm a Pilates, you know, like just start from there. Then I would invite them to come and do a session with me, because I think I have a very unique way of teaching, and I can really it shines through. So I remember with Swiss Vitamins, I went to an event and cancelled like a shift that I had that I was getting paid for, because I knew I want to work with Swiss. Went up and met the PR team, messaged them right away and said, hey, please come and do a session with me. Trained them for free at my studio, and then it ended up being work. I also have trained a number of PR agencies, and then they have all the connections to the brand. So a lot of things came through that as well. But it's like sometimes you're not going to get paid for things. You have to just put yourself out there. And that's been like a really big driver.
And it's great because now you're in a position where you don't need to go to everything. Like you've done the hard work, you've done the hard yards, but I think it's important.
There still is like hard, yes, but
I think though it's important to recognize that you have to be working for yourself. No one's going to work harder for you than you. If you want to work with those brands, like talk to those people. Don't just go to the event.
Yeah.
We're not getting paid to go to those events. Make those events work for you.
Yeah. Or if it was like, you know, a great model, like I remember one of my girlfriends went on a trip, and I'm like, who is that Dom? Like, she's gorgeous. I have to train her. And then, you know, I'm like, oh, will you introduce us? And she's like,
I didn't know this.
Yeah, she's like so nice. She would definitely let you train her. And I was like, oh, cool. And then I saw you in an event, and I was like, hey, I'm Bernie. This is going to sound so weird, but like I'm a trainer. Like,
I love that.
And that's what I do. And like models, I'd be like, look, like, hey, like, this is weird, but like I want to train you. And then it would just kind of like, you know, and
I think that's awesome advice though, because I think no one knows. Everyone sees the sparkling lights and you killing it. They don't know how you got there.
Yeah, it was a lot of bloody free sessions. And like it still is, you know, like.
But it's worth it. You know, now you give it knowing it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think like it's sad to me now that I like don't have that time like I used to, because I loved it. It was so great, and we like create like the funnest content too. And like it's a bit of, you know, I don't have that time like I used to, but I think you're not going to get paid for everything. You got to like just put and like call out to the like, this is what I want. Like, yeah, I see things. I'm like, I'm going to get like the cover of Body and Soul one day. I know I will.
I love that.
It's like those things.
You know it, yeah.
I'm just like, I know I'm going to be on national TV. I was on the Today Show last year. Like, I just,
Is there something that you do every day or every week or every month to manifest?
I would love, like, I wish I could say I do.
You probably do it subconsciously.
Way,
you know what I mean? Like, I feel the way you're going, I will.
Yeah.
You already know it. So you're doing something up there that's making you just believe in yourself.
Yeah. I guess I do. Like, I just hold myself to a high standard, and I really like, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do this. Like, I just know. Sorry to swear.
No, I swear all the time. So when it comes to comparison, being a business owner and seeing other Pilates teachers, I want to speak about how do you stay in your own lane?
Oh, that is on, and even like different Pilates studios too. And it was also like so hard.
You got copied. Like you got proper copied. Yeah.
I mean, I look at that like as a compliment, and that's okay. I remember last year when I was moving out of Tamarama, and I was like homeless, trying to set up a studio. And
this
is like
sad.
Dark side. But this girl in Dubai had copied me with like a concept for a studio name that I wanted, and was like kind of copying the content of the designer bags, and you know, my body was like painted on something similar onto the walls, and I like blew up and went crazy on Instagram. And I learnt so much from that, because I think whenever you've got like really intense views, like strong views on Instagram, or in general. You're going to get people that really love you and people that really fight against you. And it taught me to not, you know, like you just let people be. If that is in her world, that she can't come up with a unique idea, like just take it as a compliment. Don't, you know, don't spit the dummy on it.
And then how about with comparing yourself to other instructors or studios? Because it is quite a popular space.
Yeah, it's it's just like, how did I open a studio in Bondi? Like there is so much competition. Again, it goes back to that thing of abundance and just like trusting that like there's enough business for everyone. Just like once you start coming from this scarcity mindset, that's all the energy that you're pulling in. Some studios on my Instagram, if I followed them from before, I wouldn't never like just unfollow them, but I just mute them because I kind of prefer not to see what's going on. If anyone triggers me, again, I just mute them and like send them love. But like it's just best, like just keep your like tunnel vision on what you're going on and just wish everyone the best success.
Yeah, I think it's great advice because social media is a scary place, but the great thing is you can kind of control it if you want to.
Yeah.
There is a mute button there. No one needs to know that you unfollowed them. You need to be aware in yourself of what triggers you and what will impact you, and then go with what works for you. So I think that's amazing advice. And I also think that we need to be teaching us more that there is enough success for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone is so scarcity mindset. I really feel like in Australia and Sydney specifically, there's like a tall poppy syndrome situation happening here, but there is so much success and abundance for everyone.
100%. And I think like if you're ever feeling, and like this is, if I ever have like these like, big reactions or like I'm like about someone, I'm like, hey B, why are we feeling like this? Let's like let's unpack this. Like that's about you, it's not about them, you know. And I think like wish everyone well, like it's all fine. Like look how many beauty brands there are. There's enough money in this world. Like we can all live and succeed.
Yeah, I think it's just so important to recognize, and I love that what you're doing as well, to stay in your own lane, and it's worked for you.
Yeah.
No one does what you do and does it how you do it, and it's worked for you.
Yeah, and like me opening By Berner didn't burn down any of the studios that I worked at. My business is successful and flourishing. Similarly, anyone else that opens up, like I would hate it if it was opposite me, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I always end the podcast with the same question.
Yeah.
I always ask, what advice would you give your younger self?
I think probably just trust the process, and just breathe, honestly. It's like we're so wound up, and even like today, you know, when we were talking about that a few years ago about me stressing out about leaving a bloody apartment and wanting to end my life over that. Like, look at where I've cut, like it all works out. Like just relax.
I think we all need to stop taking life so seriously.
It's like what? Like
life's meant to be fun.
Yeah.
It's meant to be light. And yeah, I feel like the piece of advice you're giving is super common, and it's something that we all similarly struggle with.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
Yeah.
Well, Bernie, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We'll shed a little tear. We laughed.
Yeah.
We did it all.
Yeah.
Make sure you're following at Body by Berner and at Bernadette.Fahey. She posts the best reels that are inspiring but also hilarious. So yeah, if you guys go to the studio, make sure you tag us so we can see, and I will see you on the next episode.